Well then, this is technically breaking a rule, as the next game is essentially a spin-off, but I had to talk about it because the original is one of my top 5 games of all time, that being Def Jam Fight for New York, and I'll be looking at the PSP release Def Jam Fight for New York, The Takeover.
Give me some room, I'm throwing elbows. Timberland boots, Air Force and shell toes. Who the fuck is this?
Now then, it is a spin-off, but is essentially the same game, just with a different story. I think the developers were trying to save space by cutting out all the cutscenes and most of the voice lines, and then just made a new story told through a comic book style. And it is actually a prequel to the first game in the series, Vendetta, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. I think this game is the most interesting out of all the games I've spoken about today, as it makes the most changes from the base game, whilst also keeping the same feel as the original. First and foremost, the soundtrack is still intact, which is probably the most important thing about this game, because it is just unreal. The story mode has changed, as I mentioned, but the core elements are still here. You still get to create a character, customise them with licensed clothing. Maybe I won't choose those jeans. Tattoos, jewellery, and upgrade their stats, moves and fighting styles. But the way you progress has changed a bit, and would be my main critique of the game. In the console version, you go to different stages and have a set amount of fighters to take out, giving you a sense of progression. But in the PSP version, you just keep going to each level, doing a fight or two with no real sense of direction. Just random fights around New York, like some crackhead. You join one of 5 crews, depending on which part of New York you choose to be from, and then, well, take over other boroughs, using fighters in your crew to defend different parts. The gameplay has changed quite a bit, and I don't know how to explain it, but the fighters seem lighter, everything seems a lot more fast paced, and yeah, overall it doesn't feel as in depth as the fighting mechanics on console. There's some new stages here as well, and they're kind of boring. One that's just in an alleyway, one on a rooftop and one on a barge. Nothing too special, and don't really add much to the game. Another thing that was cut was 4-player modes like Team Battle and Battle Royale, probably due to limitations, so you can only really have the traditional one-on-one matches here. This is the game I was probably most excited to revisit, but to be honest, it turns out it made way too many changes to be compared to the original. Nowadays, if you wanted to run it on an emulator, there's a chance you could run the console version just as well, so you're probably better off just going with the original instead. But that's not what this video is about. It's about PSP ports on a PSP, and I've got to say, I still kinda love it. It's close enough to the original that it feels like you're getting the same experience, and if you're away from home and all you had was a PSP and you wanted your Def Jam fix, I don't think this game would leave you disappointed at all.